I read a quote recently that said most men die at 27, we just bury them at 72. And that sounds kind of dark, but it speaks to a deep truth because for so many of us around this age, something inside starts to change. And this is actually a studied phenomenon. One survey found that 75% of adults between the ages of 25 and 33 reported experiencing a quarter life crisis, and it's typically something that happens around the age of 27. It used to be that people didn't start questioning their identities until like their 40s or 50s, like a midlife crisis. Whatever the cause is, it's still the same thing. It's this period in your life when you realize, I did everything I was supposed to do, and I'm still not happy. It's the feeling that life somehow isn't turning out the way you thought it would. And you start asking yourself, is this all that life really is? I just wake up, I go to work, I sit in traffic, and then I come home and have all these chores. And after all that's said and done, it feels like I didn't do anything I genuinely wanted to do today, and I was miserable the whole time. Then you go to bed and wake up the next day, and the whole cycle starts all over again. It's hard not to think like this is not what I was promised growing up. I thought I would be free. I thought I'd be having fun. I thought I'd actually be living my life, not trapped in a prison of some kind. And of course, all this gets thrown in your face when you open up social media. You see people your age living what looks like a fulfilled and exciting life. It makes you wonder, I'm doing a lot of the same things they are, so why don't I feel the same way? Why can't I be happy? Why can't I feel fulfilled? So many of us were raised in a world that taught us a specific script. Do X, Y, and Z and you'll be happy and successful. But now that you've actually done X, Y, and Z, you didn't get the reward that you felt like you've always been promised. And it's not just people who aren't successful on paper that feel this way. Even entrepreneurs and people at the top of their fields still find themselves feeling unfulfilled and disconnected. And what makes this all even more frustrating is it feels like you shouldn't be feeling this way. It's like you tell yourself other people have it way worse. I should be grateful. I don't have the right to feel unhappy. But pushing down those feelings can create a sense of guilt, which turns into this belief that something's wrong with me, that I'm broken in a way that's unacceptable, and I need to hide how I really feel and make sure no one finds out how selfish I really am for not being grateful. This whole situation ends up turning into this slow erosion of your mental health. Your self-esteem starts to drop, your social anxiety starts to creep in, and you start to feel fake. You feel inauthentic, even around the people that you know. Because of this, your relationships with those closest to you can start to crumble. You might isolate yourself, turning to food or alcohol or some habit that numbs how you feel just to get by. If you feel this way, I just want to take a moment to let you know that you're not alone, and that all of these feelings, this sense of an internal struggle, is not an indication that you're broken deep down. It's an indication that somewhere deep inside, you're looking for a life built around your own values, your own interests, and your own real personality. You're not meant to just be another cog in the wheel. To start really making sense of what you're feeling, it can help to take a step back and look how our sense of identity is shaped in the first place. So in early childhood, we absorb the behaviors and beliefs of the people around us. We learn the rules of how to be, not because we choose them, but because they're all we know. Little kids don't have the ability to deeply question things or the ability to compare and contrast different options based on experience. So it's like you know what flavors of ice cream you like because you've tried a bunch of different flavors and you've figured out which ones you do and don't like. Kids don't have that experience to reference, and because a lot of what they're allowed to experience is based on their parents, teachers, or other role models, they end up just imitating the people that they look up to. And as time goes on, we start to develop social skills and we start to recognize these patterns like, if I share my toy with my friend, he'll like me. Or if I get good grades, my parents will praise me. Or if I act a certain way, I'll fit into the group. As we move through childhood and into our teenage years, our identity continues to develop, but it's still mostly shaped by the routines and expectations of others. We learn that staying within the boundaries set by our authorities earns us approval. We get praised for doing what we're told. We fit in by following the rules. So overall, our sense of who we are on the inside, it's tied to external validation from the outside. But somewhere around 18 to 22, or whenever we step into the real world, we're suddenly on our own without the training wheels. And instead of having an internally validated identity based on our own life experiences, we have this fragmented identity that's built from external validation. It's built from bits and pieces of our parents, our teachers, our culture, and the role models that we admired growing up. So it's like you're starting your adult life with this giant duffel bag full of different masks. And depending on the situation you're in, You just reach into that bag and put on whatever mask seems to fit. You go to a job interview and suddenly you're imitating the polished, confident adult that you think you're supposed to be. You go on a date and you slip into this role, this character that you picked up from movies or shows or dating coaches or whatever. And it's not because you're lying, it's because you never had the chance or the freedom to figure out who you really are underneath all of it. And this is where the early seeds of a quarter-life crisis or any identity crisis are planted. Because over the course of your 20s, you start making these long-term decisions without having other options to compare them to. And now your life has this trajectory based on those decisions you made. Maybe you admired like a business guru or something growing up. So when it came time to find a career, you just slipped on that mask. And now a few years later, you realize that you're still there, still wearing that mask that was never truly yours. The same thing could happen with relationships. Maybe you started dating someone because it made sense on paper. They checked all the boxes that your family and friends said were important. Whenever you went out into the world on your own, you only had a set of ideas that were handed down to you about how the world works. But what happens is through lived experience, you start to gain real wisdom, which only comes through trying out new things and seeing what happens. And whatever those new things are, you start to gain the ability to compare what you thought with your actual experience. And as time goes on, you start to notice these cracks between what you were told life would be and what it's actually turning out to be. And at first, this might be something you ignore, thinking it's just a rough patch or something. But over time, that sense of something being off starts to grow. Eventually, you wake up and realize that you've been miserable for months or even years. And this is where the crisis begins. But this problem starts to spiral out of control because the answers you're looking for can only come from within. And a lot of people in this situation never learned how to look inside of themselves because they were raised to get validation and direction from external sources. So at the beginning of a crisis, most people start by looking to new authority figures for answers. They turn to videos, podcasts, self-help gurus that are all giving them these different messages. Sometimes their advice does seem to help for a little while, but inevitably, people find themselves right back to where they started, questioning everything all over again. This is because deep down, no matter how good the advice is, it's still someone else's definition of a good life. And by following them, you're just exchanging one set of external rules for another set of external rules. The real truth is that you can't fix internal problems with external solutions. And while changing your environment or changing other external things like your appearance all can have their place and might be a necessary part of self-discovery, none of it will ever truly resolve the deeper question of who am I really? So if you're going through this right now and you're thinking about changing locations or you're binging different kinds of content, hoping to find some kind of answer, I'm not going to tell you not to do those things because you have to follow what you think is best. But I will tell you that from both my experience and from a lot of people that go through this, there does seem to be a pattern. This is something that's been studied. So what happens is when people get to this point where they can't fake their lives anymore, the first thing that they do is they look for answers outside of themselves. And because they've always lived as a reflection of other people's ideas, they end up just putting on a different mask, and that eventually falls apart. The next thing they do is they try to completely distance themselves from the life that they're living. It's like you're saying to yourself, well, I tried to look for answers as this current version of myself, with this current job, in this current city, in this current state, and none of that worked. So maybe what I need to do is get out of here, get some new clothes, trade in my old car for a new car, and find a new job in a new city. I just need to trick my brain into being someone else. But because these are all still external changes, they aren't getting to the core issue. So when that doesn't work, people eventually get to this point where it's like, even after all of these changes, all these things that I've tried, I'm still broken, I'm still unfulfilled. And this leads to a period of kind of mentally going back and forth. Maybe you'd moved out of state, so you decide to move back. Or maybe you try to salvage your old long-term relationship one last time by going to counseling or something. But at this point, you're at this crossroads where the old version of yourself is dying off and the new version of yourself is being born, and you're kind of stuck in between those. And so if you try to go back to your old self, it still doesn't work. But there comes a point where you just completely check out of life and let go of all expectations. But paradoxically, that's exactly what has to happen. You have to get to a point where you say, I don't care anymore, screw it, I'm just going to do whatever the hell I want, because obviously whatever I do never works out. And whenever you fully embody that, that's when you finally start to let go of all the rules and expectations and start to actually learn how to search inward. And this is where the real change begins. So a few years ago, I went through this experience myself. In the span of just a year or two, I walked away from a long-term relationship, I lost a parent, and I watched a business that I'd spent years building completely fall apart. To make it worse, a partner that I was working with that I trusted ended up stealing a bunch of money from me and leaving me with all the debt. It felt like everything that I had built in my life over the last 10 years had suddenly disappeared, and I was left just standing there with no idea who I was anymore or what I was supposed to do next. And so I did what most people do. My first instinct was to look outward for answers. So I had this period of time where I pulled away from my friends and family and spent all my time watching videos on YouTube and trying to copy different gurus, trying to become whoever they said I should be. Eventually, when this didn't work out, I had a period of time where I moved around to different cities. I even changed states, hoping that a change of environment would fix how I felt inside. And while I think that all these things played their part in my development, none of it was actually getting to the core problem. I was hoping that by distancing myself from my current life, I would find myself somewhere out there, like I was looking for someone or something to tell me what to do next. This whole cycle for me lasted almost 2 years, and it came to a point where I basically just gave up on all my dreams and aspirations and just completely checked out of life. It felt like there was just no hope for any kind of resolution, and I was just broken and cursed to live a miserable life forever now. But eventually, a turning point came when I decided to start journaling every morning. I started by just getting all my thoughts out on paper, trying to be as honest and authentic with myself as I could. Sometimes I would vent, sometimes I'd go on these long emotional tangents, sometimes I'd just write about interactions that bothered me or made me feel off. But over time, all these scrambled thoughts became more organized. I was able to start to form new principles or new ways of thinking that I could test out in the real world and then report back to see how they felt. And by paying attention to what things felt right and what things felt forced, I was able to slowly piece together what I really valued and who I really was. By keeping a record of my thoughts, I started to see that everything is in process. And I think that's exactly what I needed to learn to start to trust myself again. It made me realize that there isn't one right way that things are supposed to be. There isn't one right version of me that I'm supposed to become, which is the opposite of what most of us are taught growing up. We're given a script telling us how life is supposed to look, and whenever reality doesn't match that script, we think it's because there's something wrong with us. That's why I think one of the best things that you can do whenever you're going through an identity crisis is to spend time with yourself and give yourself the space to write and explore whatever ideas come to mind. Then to start to take action and test your ideas in the real world to see how they feel to you. Because what this starts to do is to create a feedback loop based on internal validation. So for example, in your writing, you can have a thought about something that you used to do when you were a kid, like painting or something like that. And you can write that down, that I used to like painting. And then you can try that out in the real world and then report back how that feels to you now. Over time, what this teaches you how to do is to become more comfortable with trial and error, and that it's okay to explore new ideas and new beliefs, and to let things just run their course without immediately having to decide what to think about it. So I want to leave you with that exact writing program that I made a few years ago whenever I was going through this. I made it specifically to help me start rebuilding my identity by uncovering all the patterns and beliefs that I was living by. All the detailed instructions are down in the description, but here's basically how it works. Every morning, you spend 15 to 30 minutes just writing freely about whatever's on your mind. And then twice a week, you review what you've written and answer a set of questions that start to uncover what patterns are showing up. It'll help you start to uncover all the beliefs that you're carrying, all the emotions that you're repeating, and all the invisible rules that you're still living by. So before I end the video, let me just tie everything together one last time. If you're feeling lost right now, you're not in the minority. Most people go through this at some point in their lives. But I don't want to say this in a way that minimizes how you might be feeling right now, because I know from experience it really sucks. And the truth is that there's no clean or easy way to get through this kind of thing. You can't really plan or think your way out of it. So the only way through is to actually just go through it. You kind of just have to get to that point where you're okay with not knowing or needing to have it all figured out. This means you have to let go of the ideal version of yourself that was living by different scripts. Identity is something that you live into gradually. You do this by trying new things, by messing up, notating how it makes you feel. And by doing this, you can slowly start to piece together where you really fit in the world. And that just takes time. And you might be tempted to blow everything up, to quit your job, to go travel, to move to a new state, or to rebuild your life from scratch in hopes that it finally feels right. And if that's what you feel like you need to do, then maybe that's part of your process. Sometimes you do need to leave. Sometimes the environment really doesn't fit anymore. But just know that no matter where you go, you're still bringing yourself with you. And if you're still carrying around the same internal rules and beliefs, then eventually those same feelings are going to show up again. You might have to go through a period just like I did, where you have to try on all these different masks just to really understand that it's not you. Then you might have to escape everything and move or travel or whatever. But ultimately, this part of life isn't about changing your surroundings as much as it's about getting to know yourself underneath of it all. But ultimately, what it comes down to is the real answers aren't out there. They're within you. And the only way to find them is to slow down enough to listen and to pay attention to what feels true, and to slowly rebuild your life based on that truth. And if you're looking for a good place to start, maybe start by taking some time every day to sit with yourself and to write down what you're actually feeling. All right, I think that's all for today. There's a lot more that I can add, but I think I'll save that for another video. Because in the process of getting to know yourself, one of the most important things is to start to understand what your values are. You've probably heard about how important it is to know your core values and to live by your values. But what your values really are goes a lot deeper than just like honesty or respect. These are abstract ideals. These are not values. Your own values are as unique to you as your fingerprint, and they're the lens that you see the world through. So stay tuned for that next. So anyways, I hope that this video helped you out in some way and shed some light on what you might be going through. Feel free to like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.